Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We are joined once again by legendary strength coach, according to Men's Health and soon to be Washington Post, Daniel John. He is still living the rock and roll lifestyle on his road trip. I take it, right, Dan? And we're going to talk about. I want to talk about weightlifting for weight loss today. That'll be the theme. But Dan, give us a quick update on how your world tour is going here. Mm-hmm.
Well, last night I went to the junior varsity game up at North Country Union High School. It was 8-man football.
I'm sorry, I forgot. We were going to pick a winner of somebody who guessed where you were last week.
But that only gave a hint. I didn't actually say anything else.
Right. Okay, good. Yep.
But it's a really good hint. I mean, it's pretty simple. Yeah. Who got it right?
I saw last I checked, 2 commenters actually got it right. So I will, after this conversation, go back and declare one of them the grand winner, and we will ship that lucky person some swag from the Pat Flynn show, and some of that swag will include material from Dan John. But 2 people actually got it. They did.
Mm-hmm. Well, they could have read my other stuff or listened to me. Yeah. Okay. Well,
anyways, continue.
Should we say? Mm-hmm. Should we say?
Yeah, of course. Yes, it's time to reveal the big reveal. Here we go.
I'm on Cross Street. That should give enough information at the Essex Tavern, which is just down from Pleasant Street. I mean, you should get the answers right there. Right? I'm wrong. Back Street is just over there. Lake Shores. I'm in Island Pond, Vermont, people. How do people not know? Boy, yeah. This is where my dad. This is where my dad grew up. There's a street here and a river here called Arthur John, which I'm Daniel Arthur John. He was my great uncle, I guess. And I'm happy to be here. Was at a football game last night. Picked up a little bit of a cold, just because it's that time of year. This is that we used to call it in football season the gamboo. The gamboo has hit us. This is that early fall cold that a lot of people tend to get right around now.
Yep.
Kind of that. It's this cold. And that's the only sign of it. And you just make a lot of noise and you make disgusting sounds in the morning. I've been doing the 1,000 press challenge because with me not going to Florida, I decided to do something that was a little smarter, considering the elements up here versus where I would have been. Doing 100 presses a day for 10 days. And I don't know if you could tell, but it's hard for me to get my shoulders in the screen now. The camera is literally across the room. That's how broad I've gotten. But I've been doing glute loops, hip thrust, and clamshells every day, walking every day, swimming, kayaking, pressing, really trying to ratchet in the diet, trying to eat a little bit more. I had chicken last night, but most of the time it's just been fish, lots and lots of vegetables, just trying to take a little time out. The proofreading edition of Easy Strength has come back to me, and I'm slogging through that, which is just that it's just not the way my brain works. I mean, once it's done, it's out of my head. That's going well.
Good.
Watching some fun shows. I'm happy to say that Netflix has launched Dairy Girls, the final season.
I must have missed that one.
Yeah, it could have just happened. I'm guessing it. I mean, I don't know when it happened, but it's been. I believe the cool kids call it dropped. Yes, the new season has been.
Oh, it's been dropped. I see. Yeah, the cool kids lingo. I'm not hip to it. Apparently, things slap now. If something is cool, it slap is what the kids say. So I'm trying to incorporate that. I want to make sure that this podcast really slaps today, Dan. If we can make that happen.
Well, I mean, let's slap down a great podcast for our gentle listeners, and let's kick
right now. All right. Well, yeah. So I want to talk to you about weightlifting for weight loss because it's easy, I think, for us, Dan, to just feel like, oh yeah, that conversation's done. Everybody knows if you want to lose weight, you should be strength training. But then I go back into the real world and I realize No, that isn't the mainstream impression. When people want to lose weight, they do still sort of resort to, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, the conventional wisdom. I should
Look,
do lots of
if I,
cardio. Yeah, go ahead.
it's interesting because, especially among non-believers that I found,
Whoa, we have our first caller, ladies and gentlemen.
oh, it's this daily call I've been getting from spam. I'm sorry.
It's
Holy cow. I am
little
so sorry.
early. Hold on, guys. We'll do Q&A here in just a little bit. So hold your horses. The phones are ringing off the hook as always.
Yeah,
With the Pat
geez,
Flynn
let me
show.
finish.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about non-believers, but it's funny because even a person who has no faith at all, no faith tradition, no belief system, and that's fine. There's got no issue with that. They go back to the 7 deadly sins, and they will say the reason I got fat is sloth or sloth, depending where you're from, and gluttony. And so the answer is the opposite of gluttony and sloth, which is I'm going to eat nothing and torture myself into condition. Which, of course, in August, as you recall, I did the velocity diet and an Olympic lifting peaking program. And I'll just say for the record that I can do that once every 15 years, and I think I've got a lot of self-discipline. I think I have truly a lot of self-discipline. I think I really have high levels. I have worked, in my career, 2 professions at once throughout most of my life. I have trained at really high levels while doing. I was an administrator and a professor at the same time in 2 different places. That's hard to do, and yet once every 15 years, I can do this normal way people try to lose weight.
Right. Yeah. If it's hard for Dan John, it's fair to say it's probably going to be hard.
And I'm not. And again, someone's going to listen to that, roll their eyes, and say, "Oh, geez, pat your back." But it's a truth. And the problem is when you tell somebody a better way to lose body fat would be to eat more vegetables, eat more protein, eat more fiber, drink more water, drink more coffee, lift weights for about 15, 20 minutes, and then go for a walk. They dismiss it out of hand because it doesn't fit their theological paradigm, which they might not even believe.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective on all that, Dan. And as always, you come at things from an angle I'm not quite expecting. So I want to try it and tie it all together. So I guess there's 2 things here that we want to try to correct for, right? One is this, I guess sort of default conventional wisdom where people just associate, if I want to lose weight, I should just be doing traditional, maybe long, slow cardio. And look, I have nothing against cardio. I think cardio has a great place in a general fitness program. Yeah. But yeah, so I go to the Y now, and I love the Y and training there. And I can see most of the people who have a weight loss goal spend most of the time on the treadmill still and the bikes, and they've got the TVs and all that. And commend them for the effort. That's awesome. What Dan and I would like to suggest is there might be a more efficient or better way of doing things, and it would involve, of course, resistance training and strength training. That's one thing we want to talk about. The interesting part that you brought up, Dan, is this sort of, this other default position where it's, if I want to lose weight, I have to lose weight with tremendous effort, right? I have to, that's it. And if it isn't tremendous effort, then it's not going to work. It's not useful or whatever. That's funny because I saw that you had, I always like to keep up with your stuff, Dan. And I saw you had a podcast that did very well recently, and maybe we can reiterate some of those themes of how to lose weight with little effort, which, sounds like maybe, is Dan John just being clickbaity? And the answer is no. In fact, when it comes to weight loss, I love the way you put it, Dan. If I can just say one more thing, is that the velocity diet is losing weight with tremendous effort. It's a hard exercise program, lifting, and a hard diet program. That's, if it's hard for Dan John, it's hard for everybody else. Look, I wouldn't put myself through that right now. Not that I need to, but I would not do it. I would be scared. However, much more reasonable, sustainable, and ultimately effective long-term is okay, if you're going to do a hard exercise program, then don't do so hard of a diet. Or if you're going to do a hard diet, then don't do so hard of an exercise program. And kind of easing back, being a little bit more reasonable in your approach with the right efforts tends to be, for most people, most of the time anyways, the better way to go. So, sorry, just put a lot of stuff on the table there, Dan, but develop it however you want.
Yeah, so I think we need to do, I want to also go back and look at the causative factors in just a minute.
Mm.
What got us to being fat? Okay. But I
Right.
know this. If you're doing cardiovascular work, it should be inefficient cardiovascular work, unless you do something like lift weights. Now, lifting weights is inefficient. It's much easier for me to go like this with my hand than a 20-kilo bell versus a 40-kilo bell, 106-pound bell, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, like this is something I'm recovering with. I'm kayaking a couple days a week here, and kayaking is just that's it. That's kayaking. And I tell you, when I get done kayaking, and we're only going for a couple of miles around Island Pond, and back and forth, and it's fun. But I got to tell you, man, we get in, and I'm hungry. I have definitely peaked. I mean, my body is looking for fuel. So the first thing I think the mistake a lot of people make is, if you're going to look for a cardiovascular way alone to do a body fat drop, you have to find something inefficient. If you're a crappy swimmer, swim. Like I always tell you about my bike, I have a 90-pound cruiser. If I decided to do a 100-mile race with my bike, I would lose weight, because I would have to push it up every hill. I would have to, even downhill, I'm going to go 11 miles an hour. I mean, it's going to be a long trudge. That's why I recommend heavy hands if you're walking, or putting a backpack on. I still think, now I know my friends who love rucking will disagree with me, but you can put on 35 to 80 pounds of ruck and still not get, I think, the cardiovascular benefits of 3 to 5 pounds in each hand, because it's the physics of it. Hands are in big engines. I'm going to swim. Oh, I just lost your Pat.
Yep, you're back now,
Okay,
Dan.
back.
Sorry, a little choppiness, but we're good.
Oh, I lost you, or you lost me?
I don't know. It was weird, and now it's not weird, so we're good.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. So, if you decide you're gonna swim 20 lengths or 10 laps, and you're not very good, I mean, that's going to take you maybe 30 minutes, and the whole time you'll be sitting in the shallow and going, oh, oh, oh. And of course, once you get really good at it, that's not even your warm up. And so I think when it comes to exercise, if you're going to use the cardiovascular way, you got to find things that are engaging and challenging for you. And that is going to change over time. And once you get good at one thing, find something else.
Great advice.
And then on the nutrition side, the mistake most people make is they think diet, and they think I've got to take things out. And I think you would agree, and I think most people nowadays would agree, that instead of cutting things out of your diet, you should actually eat quite a bit more. So if you decide when you break your fast, have salmon, eggs over easy, have 4 different vegetables, have 2 kinds of fruit, and a massive quantity of water and coffee.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've found in my experience and with many clients as well, that focusing on increases helps with the sorts of decreases that you want, right? So we want decreases in hyper palatable foods and excess calories, obviously. But one of the best ways to do that is to focus on increasing what? Lean protein shakes, and salmon. Yeah, go ahead, eat all the salmon you want, right? It's gonna help sort of decrease things automatically that we want to decrease or that need to be decreased for weight loss. But your focus is sort of on the increase. Try to get around a gram of protein per pound of body weight, or at least pound of lean body weight per day. And that approach, that mentality, does seem to work some magic, especially when you focus it on the protein intake, to be sure.
Yeah. So on this trip, I've been trying to eat. Well, this morning will be this morning. I haven't yet had breakfast. It'll be almost be noon when I eat breakfast this morning, because I'm eating on this trip. I'm trying to eat. So I'm eating lox, so salmon, eggs, oatmeal with protein, and then vegetables for every breakfast, or whatever you want to call that meal. Well, the thing I've noticed is, I'm not hungry. I'm not snacking. I'm not, oh, that smells good. And then I hit the lake and swim for a bit, and I do this and I do that. And then finally, I have another organized, a heavy root vegetable with like last night I had two very small chicken breasts. I felt bad for those chickens when I had them because they were very tiny. Pardon me, chicken thighs. And to me, that's something when I talk to most people, that's the big pushback I get. Here's what I get, Patrick, but I don't like vegetables. Well, then, okay, good for you. Then then I can't, if you don't like exercise, you don't like vegetables, you don't like walking, you don't like protein, you don't like fish, I don't like fish, I don't like eggs, well, you've pushed back well enough that I can no longer help you. You've taken away all the logical, easy answers.
Right. Well, then you better like just being fat. That's the end.
Oh, no. Or that person goes over to a training program that literally is called insanity. And they're going to buy that DVD for $49.95. And they're going to have a Facebook page because you know how expensive it is to set up a Facebook page. I don't know if you know this, but by God, you have to push a button. And for $49.95, they're going to get all these things. They're going to do one halfway and never do it again.
Right.
And I can remember one person showed me their storage closet of VHSs or VHS, VCR of all their exercise programs. And it's okay because if you're following along a 45-minute workout, you want a variety.
Right.
But it got me down that road of how many programs and diets. I think I told you the one woman, I asked her, how many diets have you done? And she told me 30. And then a couple of days later said, no, actually it's more like 35.
Yeah. So let's I want to focus on a couple different. So first off, let me reiterate what you said. If you're going to do the cardio efforts, focus on being inefficient, right? Because we kind of want to be wasteful. That's the idea, right? We want to be wasteful of the calories. So if you start to get good at something in the cardio sense, switch it up. This is where variety makes a lot of sense in a training program. Variety for those types of conditioning cardio efforts. We want more consistency for the strength training because we want to build those patterns, right? And that takes a lot of repetition, and maybe the variety is still there, but it's sort of a specialized variety, just little tweaks to really help with the specificity. Now, when it comes to weightlifting, the reason this is so good for weight loss is not just because of I see somebody here, Levi already has a question about the afterburn, exercise post oxygen consumption. We can talk about that in a minute. I don't think that's the primary reason. The so-called afterburn can last anywhere from 10 to 72 hours. And it's real, but it's arguable how significant that is. But
some researcher are even to the point that it's not even worth the conversation. Having said that, we also know that NEPA, all these things work. They all work, but they all work.
Yeah.
However, we're going to talk about what gets you into that.
And it's not, so I want to say it's like focus less on the afterburn and focus more on what the strength training does, which it helps to build more of that lean muscle, which itself is very metabolically expensive, helps you to burn more calories automatically. And ultimately, it helps people get what they want when they're thinking about weight loss anyways, which is just a leaner, harder look in general. And that's why weightlifting is really, I think, the game changer when it comes to
it's also why this is why when I first met Rob Wolf and he talked about this thing called the hormonal cascade. I don't know if he still uses the term because I wish he would. But lifting weights, did you lose me again?
No, I'm here, Dan.
Okay. Lifting weights, fasting, eating just like, for example, if all you did was eat salmon for 8 days. Wow, that would be an interesting 8 days. Or, what Vince Garanda used to recommend, you eat 36 eggs a day, or Dave Draper, you eat just tuna, fish, and water for a while. If you just did that, what happens inside your system isn't just your body has a hormonal cascade. Your body responds to those things in the same way your body will respond to, like, for example, if you have all of your children get sick at once, Patrick, and you don't sleep for 2 weeks,
Right.
you will have a hormone response.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the end of that 2 weeks, you might actually be better in some qualities of your life, once you've adapted and slept. So the weight room, yes, builds lean body mass. Yes. It increases your strength. Yes. But there's also a hormonal cascade that happens. And according to Rusty Moore, and I think it's true just from my experience, that lifting frees up the free fatty acids the same way so fasting frees up free fatty acids, coffee frees up free fatty acids, lifting weights frees up free fatty acids. And then when you go for your walk, he talks about how, like little Pac-Man, the body that consumes those foods. And I thought
It's a very fun visualization.
and I love that visualization, because if you know what Pac-Man is, it's as you're walking, then
You're Pac-Manning the Pac-Man in the fat, right?
Yeah.
That's great. That's really good. So Dan, you've recently had very good success with weight loss this year. I forget what the number is at, but it's impressive. How would you summarize your approach, and how would you generally, putting the V diet aside, because that was an interesting re-experiment after many years.
That was an experiment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But you were having much great success before that. So
exactly.
maybe you could, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, and remember, the reason I did there was a lot of reasons I did the V diet. One was for these conversations, and I mean that. So every so often I have to stop and remind myself of something I think is correct. I think I'm one of the few people in the industry who does this, Patrick. I actually question my own beliefs, which is kind of a good idea. So let's see. I was down 36 pounds when I started the V diet. And what I basically did, and there's nothing, and folks, it's all over every website. I talk about it in my, there's nobody behind the curtain behind me. Get back there. Get back there. Sorry, the person keeps trying to sneak out. Get back behind the curtain. It comes down to basically this. Before I go to bed, I take my, I take my supplements or whatever I do. I do my to-do list for the next day. Oh, and I get the coffee ready. So either at home, I have a little thing that starts the coffee in the morning. So I wake up to the smell of coffee. Here, I have to press a button. So that's a lot of extra work. I don't want to.
Some vacation, Dan.
Yeah, I know. So before I go to bed, supplements, set the coffee. I wake up, I meditate, because I think meditation in the morning is extremely important to with my concussion issues and just to set my day started correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I then get my work done until I get ready to lift weights. And in my most successful fat loss has been when I've kept the reps very low. So if I'm doing bodybuilding where I do push, pull, hinge, I don't usually squat on an easy strength. I do those in the warm-ups. Push, pull, hinge. I do some additional TRX work, suspension trainer work, T's, Y's, I's, single arm rows, because
right.
Because I want to keep my shoulders back. Kayaking, by the way, has replaced all of that on this trip. And then a suitcase carry, and then we go for a 45-minute walk. Mm-hmm. If I'm Olympic lifting, it's clean and press. It depends, but I'll just give you my favorite one. Clean and press, 3 sets of 3. Olympic squat snatch, 3 sets of 3. 2 sets of 2 in the front squat. Go for a walk.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those, I don't know if you guys listen to those numbers. That's not, we're talking 18 reps in an entire workout. That's it. 18, 20 reps, all done. That's it. There's no one behind the curtain. And then when I do those Olympic lifts like that, by the way, that is 3 sets of 3 in the squat, clean, and press. 3 sets of 3 in the snatch, squat, snatch, sorry. 2 sets of 2 in the front squat when I needed to. And then go for a walk. My body responded by really hardening up.
Mm-hmm.
On the scale, the weight came down. That's great. My waistline came down. That's great. But I just can't keep my shoulders in the picture.
In the frame.
Because of those clean and presses, my barnyard wide shoulders. So what I'm trying to get across here is that the weightlifting followed by the walking And then after that, I would do protein, veggies, and water for breakfast.
Right.
Then I have another one of those meals. That was the best I did. And someone's going to say, was that hard? And my answer was, no, it was not that hard. It was not a hard workout.
It was not that hard. Right.
In fact, it was easy strength, and it was repeatable, doable, and my body responded on the scale by just going whoosh.
Right.
So that's the key.
Yeah. So before we take some questions here, gentle listeners, send us whatever you have. What's next for you, Dan? Now, for your next kind of goals through the rest of the year. Do you have any other big targets? Any competitions coming up? Would love to hear what next couple months look like for you.
Well, easy strength. I'll be finishing up on easy strength. One of the goals is to, continue to kind of strive for this, look better, feel better kind of thing, move better. I'm doing on road trips. I have discovered that I can't just do glute loops and clamshells. I got to make sure I keep doing my original strength. I don't have a competition. So one of the things I'm doing, folks, I'm doing a short timeout in life. So I do have workshops coming up, but I'm doing this with it. I do have a book coming up, but I'm pushing it off. I decided to take about a 4 to 6 week period where I just turn all the volume down in my life. Trying not to get angry or upset. I'm not throwing beer cans at comedians. I'm not, I don't know if you saw the news on that.
No.
I'm just really just trying to turn the engines off. I even noticed with college football, which I love. If you know me, you know I love college football. I like to watch games. I'm watching games, but I'm just trying to I try to watch games with teams I don't care about.
Just trying to keep the steam pressure down.
Yeah. Trying to, and then that'll allow me to, I think I haven't done in a long time. And I needed to.
For all of us, we need that for
so.
sure. It's good to be intentional about that. I've got one sports team I like, Dan. It's the Lake Country Dock Hounds. I don't even think they're minor league. They built the stadium here. They're awful. So not a high investment. If they lose, don't get too upset. But that's it. That's my only sport.
One of the things I've always wanted to do, we have a great little AAA affiliate where I live, the Salt Lake Bees, is get a season tickets and go to every game just to see if I have the courage to actually sit through that many home games.
Well, I was thinking about getting season tickets to the Dock Hounds. First off, if you're ever in Lake Country, Wisconsin, it's so much fun because I don't care about the team or even the sport that much, but it's beautiful little stadium and bring all the kids. Yeah. It's just like a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. So yeah, I endorse the Dock Hounds. I definitely do.
My nephew here is a baseball player, and I watched him playing the game. My grandnephew, I guess. And then I'm watching I'm going up and watching the various, the junior varsity game last night, where I want our Falcons to win. But honestly, when I leave the stadium, I have to think about who won or lost on the road home. I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah, that's great. And I would like to think that's sort of what sports should be about. Yeah, people get so invested, man. I mean, I went from Philly, right, which is notorious for there's some sort of psychiatric issue when it comes to Philly fans.
You guys threw snowballs at Santa Claus, famously.
Yeah, no doubt. There's something like we need to shut all Philly sports down for a good 2 years and just get everybody in therapy. You're gonna get
destroyed. Be careful. I would not share your home.
Oh, I'm happy to share. Look, I'm from Philly, but I'm happy to critique Philadelphia culture. I'm a product of it, so I can say that, right? But now I'm in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's very interesting because people here, they really love the Packers, but I don't see the same kind of erratic, violent sort of tendencies when the Packers lose among Wisconsinites. A much more chill tendency out here. I mean, people are disappointed and sad, of course, but very different sports culture out here. Again, very invested. People love the Packers out here, but the reactions are very different. I don't understand it because it's a world I'm just not.
It'd be, if for any of you trying to get a degree in psychiatry or psychology, I guess, it'd be an interesting study to follow fans with losing programs.
Mm.
In fact, the Damn Yankees is kind of a study of that. It's a Broadway musical for those of you who are uncultured.
There's also a 80s band with that title as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For those of you who are uncultured.
But Patrick, before we get away from this is something I want you to put to your heart. When I sit down with somebody and I say that I want you to start your day with a cup of coffee, to meditate, to get your work done, to lift weights and go for a short half an hour walk. I want you to do I want you to do 2 sets of 5 and a press, a pull, a deadlift variation and ab wheel, and then go for a half hour walk. So your investment of 45 minutes, and then eat vegetables and protein and drink water, and do that a couple times a day. And then try your best to sleep 9 hours. All your dreams will come true. The amount of pushback I get for that is more than, getting those crazy political pundits talking to each other, or, any divisive conversation. People hate the idea that there's a reasonable way to get their body fat goals.
Right. Yes. And yet we will persist, Dan. We will persist and continue pushing that message because it is the reasonable message, right?
But here's the thing. I told you to sleep. I told you to drink more water, eat more vegetables. How much money am I going to make on any of the advice I gave you?
Wow.
To sleep more, to drink more water. How much am I going to make?
None from me, at least.
Wait, you're not gonna send me a check for drinking more? No. And that's as long as you find idiots continue to pay people in the fitness industry to do more and more stupid things, the answer will never be reasonable.
Is the industry becoming dumber overall, or is it the same? You've been in it a lot. I've been in it for a hot minute myself. I counted up the years. It's been a while, and I've seen some crazy stuff come and go. And to me, it just seems like it's kind of the same level of stupid overall. We just kind of have different phases of stupidity. Do you think that's right, Dan? I mean, I see this thing about this Liver King guy. It's like I still don't know if it's a joke. Like, I do not know. I out of morbid curiosity, people sent me a thing, and I looked at it, and there's a lot of people like this out there. And the dude's huge, right? He's gigantic. But I cannot for the life of me tell, like, is this serious or is it a joke? And if it's a joke, then it's, I guess, brilliant in a sick sense, and probably in an immoral sense because so many people believe it. If it's not a joke, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
There's this new thing that the Instagram female influencers are doing. Is now they're pushing back, and it's like, you usually just think I have 8-pack abs, but here's a normal picture of me. And it's I won't go that far. But it's like, they'll show a picture, and this is, for some reason, I don't know what this is about. When women are showing off their abs, they put their hands here. And I don't know what that, honestly, I don't want to know why, but I see this all the time. I guess it maybe pulls the skin tight. Oh, that's what it does. Okay. God, I'm going to start. Patrick, every picture I send of you now will have my abs pulled up. And then they'll have a picture, and there's this, you can almost see a whole wrinkle of fat across her 8-pack. And you're like, oh, you're just like me. And some other one showed a side picture of herself, and she really did look like she'd had like a surgery or something like that. And good for her. But now the new thing is to show everybody that you are normal. And the thing is, you got to be careful in life.
It's like this. There's this weird narcissism online where, like, somebody feeds their narcissism by bragging about their quote unquote imperfections, right? Like, it's like this is like a new level of sick narcissism that we've somehow achieved.
Well, do you remember years ago when there was that picture of Arnold on the beach? He was, he's a 65-year-old man. And he's on the beach, and he's soft, and he's speaking of. Did you see the picture of me on the beach the other day?
Looking sharp and toned, my friend.
Rocking the traps and lats, baby. Looking like a looking like a 64-year-old man. Okay, and people got a lot of fun out of it because Arnold wasn't in Mr. Olympia shape from 1974 75. And my thought was, really,
who on earth expected him to be?
I remember looking at a picture of Doris Day, when she was in her 80s versus when she was in her 20s. I'm going to tell you something. This is going to shock you, Pat Flynn. Shock you, my young friend. Shock you. She looked older in her 80s than she did in her 20s.
Wow, that's incredible, right? Yeah, I just would never believe that.
Yeah, just like when they found Ramsey's mummy, he looked terrible.
Yeah, I just couldn't.
So much worse than he
couldn't
did.
imagine that a boxer in their 80s wouldn't be as competitive as in their early 20s. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. That's one of the things I do like about Spring Chicken. There's that great chapter called Vaulting to Eternity. And he goes to a master's track meet, and he's talking about some of the numbers that master's athletes will turn out. I had a boy come out for track. This is one of my favorite. He was a wide receiver on the track team. And he says to me, he says, Coach, I'm going to do you a favor. Literally, he says, I'm going to do you a favor and come out for track. And I can remember going, okay, you're a wide receiver on a team that runs the ball every play. This is track and field. So he goes to his first track meet and he runs 100 meters, I'm putting air quotes on runs 100 meters in 16.5 seconds. And then Vaulting to Eternity by the chapter Spring Chicken by Guilford, he talks about, I believe, an 80-year-old man running 16 seconds in the 100 meters. And I thought to myself, because I knew the times. I mean, I know times. And it's like, you're not as fast as an 80-year-old man. So that might be, And that's quick, tight, knit the point. That's kind of what we want to do in our field, Patrick. You want to push your health span as far into the distance as you can. One of the things is I can show you my performances on the platform, and you can see that I'm getting weaker as I age. Now, I'm snatching and cleaning, jerking less weight. My flexibility, my mobility are not what they were in the 90s and aughts. But boy, I tell you, for 65, I feel pretty good. I'm out there sea kayaking with my grand nephew. I'm out walking and, being a general nuisance and all the time. And that's I think that's another reason we should do this. We started talking about losing weight in a more logical fashion, using weightlifting to help you lose weight. But part of it is, longevity. I want to wake up and feel good every day for the rest of my life. And I don't want to wake up. I work with people in their 20s when I first started teaching who bitched about rolling out of bed to go teach in their 20s. And dude, it just goes like this after that. I feel
good.
Like
yeah. No, the point is very well made, as always, Dan. Let's squeeze in a question or two, and then we'll let you get back to your vacation. I actually got one from Instagram.
No, you're good.
I promised friend Johnny from Instagram that we would take his question. And if you're not connected with Dan and I on Instagram, we are both on Instagram, and I'll put our accounts in the profile.
Well, thank you.
And I want to make sure we give Instagram some love. So this question comes from gentle listener Johnny Heslop, and it's a bit extended. So let me read it here, Dan, and we'll get your thoughts, because it is aimed mostly to you. He says, I have a question for an upcoming show if possible. Johnny says, I have returned to working out in the gym in earnest for the first time since COVID. My general fitness and strength has been maintained working as a dry stone waller in that time. My long-term goal is hypertrophy and development of a more balanced physique. Would yourself and Dan see it as appropriate to build my strength base via easy strength, then to build lean muscle beyond that? I feel that increasing my baseline strength may unlock greater possibilities for the broader goal. And his current three lifts, the big three lifts, he says, his bench press is at 80 kilograms, his deadlift is at 140 kilograms, and his squat is at 115 kilograms. So it seems like he's asking, given where he is, do you think easy strength would be the best way for him to
and he's probably past the beginner stage as a lifter. He's certainly slide into intermediate, and generally, and I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. It was
Johnny.
So Johnny, with that 115 and that 140, those aren't, those are good, solid numbers. Those are numbers, and don't take this wrong at all. That's what I expect a high school football player to be able to do. Okay. So think about it this way. Okay. So I don't know how long you've been lifting, but one of the things that's going to help you is getting stronger. I remember that great when Powerlifting USA magazine came out. They used to advertise in the bodybuilding magazines, and they'd say, Eduardo put 12 inches on his arms. He went from he went from a 135-pound bench press to an 800-pound bench press. And so there's no question in my mind that getting stronger is going to help you with your hypertrophy goals. I think one of the knocks on people, and you'll see it on almost every public gym, is how most people kind of top out. This is without drugs. Now, the druggy guys are often very weak in gyms too, but they look impressive. And hats off to them, who cares? But what you'll notice is many people flatline when they go to gyms, and it's because they're not aggressively pursuing more strength gains. So yes, easy strength would help. A 5-3-1 program by Jim Wendler would probably be fine too. The downside of easy strength, but you're an intermediate, you should be able to handle it, is that you have to go by feel a little bit more. Whereas with Jim's program, he'll tell you, get as many reps as you can. The downside on any program that has, pushing the reps is you do need good spotters. And I'm not poo-pooing the programs. I'm just saying it's real hard to have quality spotters in a public facility.
Oh, that's so true.
And you need to have, so then you get a training partner. And of course, now you have, I usually think it's 2 lost lambs trying to find their way home. One lost lamb will only make 359 degrees of mistakes. 2 lost lambs will make more. Okay. So if you have someone and this would be and Johnny, it might be a time for you to, and be careful. I was going to say get a personal trainer, but make sure you get yourself a qualified personal trainer. Even if it's one day at work, for someone to watch your reps, one day a week to watch your movement, one day a week to push you through a few sets, that might be worth it by itself.
Yeah. Really good advice. And I do, Johnny seems to be indicating, I think this is correct, that, strength is sort of, it sets the limits on things, right? Somebody whose strength is maxed out by a 135-pound bench press, right, is just going to be that much more limited in what they can do in terms of putting on muscle than somebody who can put up, three plates on each side, for example, right?
Exactly.
So these things work in tandem, but yeah, other things being equal, it really does pay to be stronger. So focusing on strength is sort of, sometimes the analogy is given, strength's like the bucket, right? The stronger you are, the bigger the bucket is. You can fill it with other cool things, right? Like lean muscle and stuff like that.
Exactly true.
Now you still have to fill that bucket, right? And it won't fill automatically just through heavy strength efforts, but the more strength efforts you do, the bigger your bucket become. I think that's a pretty good analogy, right?
I remember when I was coaching Paul in the discus, and we were pushing his snatch, clean and jerk, front squat, but he had teammates whose dad were coaching them, and the dads would go online. Well, there was before online, but they would get muscle magazines, and I remember this one boy trying to throw the shot farther, and he probably did 5 variations of triceps presses, behind the neck, off, skull crushers, teeth crushers, pulled, the tricep, this one here, and he never threw very far. And I kept thinking, because all that light hypertrophy work, those garbage reps, he might as well spend walking up a hill to build his calves. It's good for your calves to walk up a hill, but you're not going to throw something far doing that. You need to get strong. And I tell you one thing, once I started, I tell people this all the time, is that once you clean and press your body weight and snatch your body weight, you're all of a sudden you just see the universe much clearer. It makes more sense to you. I look at the prairie dog.
It's just enlightenment now, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what Danny meant by being, because if you can snatch body weight, I can guarantee you can deadlift a double body weight. I know you can. You don't even have to test it. You just know it. And if you can clean and jerk body weight, there's a real good chance you can probably squat a really good number too, because you're just overall more of a badass.
Yeah, good. Very good. Okay. Here is a very good question from user MK Vine. Wants to know, are cable weights just as effective as free weights? Dan, we haven't talked too much about cables and cable weights on this program before. So what are your thoughts on all this?
So Vine, there is nothing wrong with machines. There's nothing wrong with cable weights. And I say this, I volunteer at the senior center and help these young. I mean, I feel bad for these old folks. Some of these people are in their 50s that I'm helping. Can you imagine being 50 years old and still trying to lift weights? It just inspires you.
Yeah, I think at that point, all of your exercise should just be sitting and resting. Let's play
just trying to catch your breath, I think. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer in machines. So it's I can't remember the letters we used to do, but injured, ill, aging. Those are when machines are there. Now, there's great value machines for other things too. Okay, but for the injured, the ill, and the aging, the safety component it trumps a lot of the other things. Okay, so with cable machines, there are certain exercises that are going to be really good. My biggest knock on them, and just from Vine, is that they're freakishly expensive, and you couldn't have them for a home gym. And when the gym closes, like for example, if there was I don't know, God forbid, but like maybe a pandemic, it'd be real hard to use those things. That's why I get a kettlebell, learn how to use that kettlebell for a whole variety of things. Pick up another one, or get a dumbbell, learn a whole variety of things with the dumbbell, get another one. You follow my point?
Yeah.
Get an Olympic barbell, get a 110-pound barbell from a flea market, learn how to use it, and use it. That's
Dan. I'd be curious how you think this falls into your sort of killer app framework, right? So, as effective is a relative question, right? As effective for what? Well, if we're talking about building your deadlift, I think the answer is quite obviously no, right? The killer app for that is just going to be the barbell. Is it useless? No. And that's the other thing we have to keep in mind is certain things might not be as effective. They might not be the total killer app for it, but they could still be pretty darn good, right? Yeah. And for a lot of people, it could still make sense to use that. Now, if I'm going to try to be maximally effective with getting somebody's deadlift up and building that strong hinging pattern, I mean, it's the barbell for sure, right? Could cable still be useful? Yeah, of course, right? But are there other patterns where the sort of cable machines or cable weights might be the killer app, might be the best thing to use? I think there are, but a lot of those exercises would seem to me to be the sort of auxiliary type exercises where the cable machines tend to be a really effective, good option. Just Dan, maybe some thoughts on how you would think about in terms of the killer app framework.
Well, it takes us back to when I first read Arnold and Franco's advice about getting big. I mean, this is now I think the first thing I ever read about Arnold is 68 or 69, and the argument then was you do barbell curls, and then all of a sudden the bodybuilding community said, well, if you do a cable curl, you can feel it more here, and if you do a French curl, you can feel it more here. If you do a Belgian curl, you'll feel it more here. If you do a Luxembourg, more here, and a Benelux, and the problem is that none of that really ever worked when they studied it, and so there is some value in some of these things like that this exercise here where they take the two cables and go like that. But the piece of equipment is bigger than the room I'm in right now. And so, yeah, there are certain, I think machine leg extensions and machine leg curls. I guess I shouldn't talk about leg extensions. I guess they're bad for you now, but I mean, it is a great way. And I use them in every rehab I've ever done. I've done leg extension and leg curls because I like the pump you get from that machine. I like the quads to remember what it's like to have blood in them. Having said that, boy, that's a narrow little, area.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have value, but I mean, it's compared to just a barbell and a kettlebell and a suspension trainer. No.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Let's take one or two more questions here. Let's go to Dan Herman. Dan says it's a fair point that Dan has made as it relates to rucking and heart rate. This is much earlier in the conversation he's talking about. I still struggle to get my heart rate past 115 or 120 going uphill with a 16-kilogram bell in a pack. Any advice for our friend Dan here, Dan?
Yeah, Dan, that's very common. Now, that's also very good that your heart rate stays down with that 35, 16K load, and good for you. But that was one of the reasons I segued from rucks back to heavy hands. Is so when I wear my heart rate monitor, I can hear and see that heavy hands was more appropriate to my goals. Now, obviously, when I'm on a military base and I see a guy going past me, really fast with a ruck, I'm impressed. The downside, of course, with those 80, 90-pound rucks those guys use is the destruction on the knees and ankles and spinal column. And it's funny because they'll say, "Yeah, it hurts, but I'm going to power through." You can only power through so many joint injuries before you're going to regret that. Yeah, but that was good. That's a good point. And Dan, I'm impressed. There's another note up here from, I once was a runner, and maybe that is why his heart rate stays down. He does have a trained ticker, so maybe he needs to go. It's funny, Dan. You might just have to go faster, not heavier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, Dan. Before we say goodbye, what is coming up? What's next? Go for you in terms of your trip, and anything else you want to announce? What else has happened? I saw you had an interview with Brett Contreras, so I want to mention that.
Brett. I'm going to try to talk to him every month. Brett is just he's an absolute joy. Very, very bright young man. It's funny. Someone instantly said he didn't invent the hip thrust. About a 20-minute part of the conversation was, no one had ever put weights on the hip thrust before Brett, and I know that's true. And someone pulled out a book from, Alan Calvert's book, and it was just like funny because it's like, okay, but it never caught wind. And the point I want to make why I'm bringing this up is, back in the 80s, I came up with the runner pass options with our running offense, so the quarterback could either hand the ball off or throw it. And the head coach didn't like it, and I threw it out. So technically, in the 1980s, I invented the modern ROP. But here's the deal. We didn't use it. We didn't do it. We didn't develop it. So I need to shut up. Earl Nightingale talks about this all the time. He goes, yeah, whenever you come up with an idea, everyone screams, that was already been used. Yeah, it was already been used, but it didn't stay around. No one adopted. There's that person who claims they invented the goblet squat, which is as it more I think about it. Of course, my first published article on it's 2003. The person didn't even show up until 2006 in fitness. So, they invented it, in a time machine. That's what they did. So my point on this little crazy segue I'm telling you is that we got to be real careful on when we give credit or don't give credit to people. A lot of the stuff, somebody asked me this week about this knees over toes guy stuff, and it's like, this is stuff we did when I was young. And but my concern, or like you said, Liver King guy, and I could also say 50 bananas a day girl. Whenever we take anything to
is that another real thing? 50 bananas a day, or is that?
I think so. Gentle listeners, am I right on that?
It's sad that we're in a state of the fitness industry when I hear something like that, and it could go either way for me, right? Either that could be a complete joke, or that could be something that somebody's actually doing, right? That's just kind of the state of the industry, which not great, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, I read a thing today that a youth died when the police shot him in the head, and I thought to myself, well, in my experience, when you get shot in the head, you die. And it was just kind of a funny little, Yeah, you're to the point now where you actually, I will go in and read the article because was there something unique about dying being shot in the head? If I said today that all I eat is chicken kidneys and that's how I got my snatch over 300 pounds, someone's going to be like the poor marketeer, they're going to go down the supermarket and demand every chicken kidney or whatever the hell it is,
Mm-hmm. Anyways, so I'll encourage people to check out that conversation with Brett.
Michelle Page says, check out the Portlandia spoof of the Banana Girl. Portlandia is a comedy show.
Okay.
I love Portlandia, and I can't believe someone got that famous doing just that. That's awesome. Thanks.
I will have to first check out the Banana Girl because I'm not familiar with that one. I've already wasted enough time with the Liver King, but what's another 20 minutes? So, Dan, thank you so much. As always, your advice is greatly appreciated. Good luck as you continue editing Easy Strength. We're looking forward to that release. And same time next week, I take it?
I sure hope so. I love you, man. And we will talk then, okay?
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with both of your friends. Adios.
Adios. Thank you, Patrick.